Hey everybody, it's Gary Mears. It's good to be with you today. It's the first week of March, so February's over. Can spring be far behind? Daylight savings time begins here in a week and a half. We're about 2 weeks into the Christian season of Lent. I trust that if you've taken on some form of spiritual practice for Lent, that it's going well for you. If you haven't, it's not too late to start. It's never too late to start. If the past winter, if this season, if this year has been too difficult for you and you just simply couldn't take on some sort of spiritual practice for Lent, that's okay too. What matters is that we all seek to walk with God in our own way, in our own style, and that we reach to God and seek that closer relationship. I've got two stories today that I want to talk about: faith and healing. They're both from Scripture, so I'm going to jump right in. The first one comes from Luke chapter 8 and goes like this. As he, that is Jesus, as he went, the crowds pressed in on him. Now there was a woman who had been suffering from hemorrhages for 12 years. And though she'd spent all she had on doctors, no one could cure her. She came up behind him and touched the fringe of his clothes, and immediately her hemorrhaging stopped. Then Jesus asked, "Who touched me?" When everyone denied it, Peter said, "Master, there's a crowd surrounding you and pressing in on you." But Jesus said, "Someone touched me, for I noticed the power had gone out from me." When the woman saw that she could no longer remain hidden, she came forward trembling and falling down before him. She declared in the presence of all the people there why she had touched him and how she had been immediately healed. He said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you clean. Please go in peace." Now here's a woman suffering, it says, bleeding for 12 years. Now, I believe the bleeding reference is a reference to menstruation. So not only was she suffering physically, but in those days and in that culture, she would have been ceremonially unclean and even ostracized because of this ailment. Yet she had amazing faith. In the same story, the version of the story that's in the book of Matthew, it says that she reasoned, "If I can only touch the hem of his garment, I know I will be clean." And she did, and she was. Now, Jesus is in this crowd, and they're all grouped around him and pressing in on him. He was being touched by lots of people. But there was something special about her touch. Peter didn't get that. Again, when the woman admitted that it was her who had touched him, Jesus said, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace." The second story is in Mark chapter 9. It deals with a man who brings his son to Jesus to be healed. So again, it's a healing story. "Teacher, I brought my son to you. He's possessed with a spirit that's robbed him of speech. Whenever it seizes him, it throws him to the ground, and he foams at the mouth, gnashing his teeth and becoming rigid. I asked your disciples to drive out the spirit, but they could not. When the spirit who possessed the boy saw Jesus, it immediately threw the boy to the ground in a convulsion. He rolled around, foaming at the mouth, and Jesus asked the father, 'How long has he been like this?' 'Since childhood,' the father answered. 'It has often thrown him in the fire or into the water to kill him. But if you can do anything, take pity on us and help us.' 'If you can,' said Jesus, 'all things are possible for those who believe.' Immediately the father replied, 'I do believe. Help me overcome my unbelief.' When Jesus saw that a crowd was running to the scene, he rebuked the impure spirit. 'You deaf and mute spirit,' Jesus said, 'I command you to come out of this boy and never enter him again.' The spirit shrieked and convulsed violently and came out. The boy looked so much like a corpse that many in the crowd said, 'He's dead.' But Jesus took the boy by the hand and lifted him up, and the boy stood up." Now, this is one of my favorite stories in the Bible, and if you've been around me at all the past several years, you've probably heard me tell it before. Here's a dad who brings his son, his very, very sick son, to Jesus to be healed. The man had faith, but it was imperfect. His faith wavered from time to time. Sound familiar? When Jesus said, "Everything is possible to one who believes," the man replied, "I do believe. Help me overcome my unbelief." And Jesus healed the boy. In the first story, the bleeding woman has amazing faith, seemingly perfect faith. In the second, the father's faith is far too human. Nonetheless, Jesus healed the son. That's who Jesus was, and that's who Jesus is. And we should take comfort in that. I could ask you whether you more identify with the woman in the first story or the father in the second, but I suspect I already know the answer. Our faith is imperfect. We have doubts. For some of us, we live in that doubt all the time. For others, that doubt is occasional. But you see, God doesn't insist that we meet him halfway or have some artificial requirements or some strict process that we have to follow. Jesus merely says, "Come to me." And in that imperfect faith lies the miracle, the mystery, the power of God's grace. For you see, we don't serve a tyrannical God who punishes those who stumble or insists upon 100% pure, pristine faith. Ours is a God of grace who understands the human condition and understands what it means for us who doubt. Now remember, the man didn't say to Jesus, "I don't believe in you. You can't heal my son." But he did say, "I do believe. Help me overcome my unbelief." He showed some level of faith simply by bringing his son to Jesus to be healed. He had faith, but he had moments of doubt and frailty. But Jesus transcended that doubt and frailty and healed his son nonetheless. And for us, he'll do likewise. So as we hear these two stories, let us aspire to the faith of the woman. For when we walk that closely with God, amazing things are possible. But let us also rest assured that our God understands us when we doubt, loves us when we are weak, and covers us with grace when we stumble. If you want to talk about these stories some more, feel free to reach out to me. If you want to talk about any of the videos we've put forward over the last few weeks, I'd love to talk to you about it. Again, have a great day, have a great week. It's always great to be with you.